I grew up as a Christian. I am a pastor's kid. There's days where I feel pressured within my community, my church. Everyone's eyes on you. Every time you wear something or you say something always reflects on how your parents are. But little did they know that it's my own choice. Everything is my own choice. There's days where I feel like I needed to pretend in order to fit in. I need to be a certain type of person to feel qualified to be a Christian. When I came for college, I came to the US. I lived by myself, no family around the area, doesn't know anyone. I started fresh and it felt free to just explore and just be a normal person, because when I was back in the Philippines, there's always a weight on my shoulder that made me feel like I had the opportunity to do things that as a Christian should not do. I struggle to say no a lot of the times into drinkings and partyings. I started dating someone who always has a lot of addictions. He smokes weed and drinks and parties every time. So I always, even if I know he goes to church with me every single time, he does ministry with me, but then in the back of my mind, like, I am so convicted to like rebuke him for all the things that he's doing, but I was so scared. I was always scared that I might hurt his feelings. And then time came, a lot of my Christian friends saw that he was not a good influence in my life. With me compromising, I lost so many people in my life. Great friends that helped me grow in my faith. And even that, I also lost the person I thought I'm gonna marry, which was my boyfriend at that time. Every time I step on like campus, I always feel ashamed. Like I should not be in a Christian school, or I shouldn't be called a pastor's kid. I lied so much about how I am to my parents and what I do to my parents. A lot of it comes from not finding myself to be called a Christian. I always try to encourage other people to be reading their Bible, praying, doing worship, attending church, but little did they know I struggled to do the same things. After college, I find myself struggling one problem after the other. I lost my friends after college. I also lost contact with my relatives who I never reached out in the years that I was here in college. I basically had nothing left with me. No friends, no anyone to talk to. So I find myself struggling in that aspect of community. As an extrovert, I always try to find community, and it was really a hard thing for me to just stay at home and read a book or do things by myself. So with that, I tried to go out and like explore, and I did so many things going on dating apps to find validation. And then I always try to skip church because I always feel ashamed. Like I don't feel like I belong. I feel like people at church are so holy and pure. But then there's this one night I started crying out and asking God for help. On my birthday, September 8th, I remember crying on my bed, receiving a letter that says my OPT got denied. I only have 15 days to pack everything I have in the US, leave my car in a parking lot. I really struggled a lot that time, and I feel like God was not answering my prayers at all. I was struggling as well to even come back to the Philippines after 4 years of being in the United States. I felt that I'm going back to a place where it's new again. When I went back, I cried out and told God to prepare myself. If coming home back in the Philippines is for me, then make my desires change, because I always have the desire to stay in the US and work here long term so I can support my family back home and even my community back home. When I was in the Philippines, a lot of things happened, like Doors have been closed, no work, no anything. And I stopped complaining and I started surrendering. That's when I found God. When I surrendered every plans that I have, when I started giving everything to God, even the simple things, I asked God to give me that desire again to know Him and seek Him. And that's when I started devoting myself reading the Bible every single day. Not a single day go by that I didn't spend my time with God. And those years that I went home, when I asked God to give me a desire to come back and just know what God's intentions are, why He's trying to bring me back home and then coming back to the US again, why? I always have that question, but then a lot of the times as Christians, we always only see the negative side of things and never in the positive side of things. So God changed my mind to see a new perspective, a different perspective of what is happening in my life. So I've seen everything in a good way. I changed my mind in seeing the other perspective. Maybe God wanted me to move back home so I can spend time with my little siblings. As they grew up, I can see how they're growing, and I also serve in my church back home where they needed really help with the youth ministry. So I've seen it that God wanted me to go home so I can help my community still because they need help. And then when I came back to the US, that's when God already prepared me that my mission back home is already done. And in a lot of open and closed doors, I've always seen God move. He provided with every single thing that I have. Even asking God for a Starbucks. There's days where it's a silly prayer if you think about it, but I even ask God for the smallest things. I asked God for a Starbucks drink and someone paid for my Starbucks drink. Not once, but twice. So this is just an encouragement that if you are trying to see God, that He's not answering your prayer. Know that God answers our prayer. It's just not in the moment that we want it. God always shows up in the days where it seems impossible, when doors seems closed, but He is just preparing you for a bigger plan. As I always have read this quote, the way is longer because the blessing is bigger. And I always hold on to that because I've seen that in my life. So right now, I also asked God, I was supposed to go home again in the Philippines because after looking for a job for 2 years, jobs has not been successful for me here in the US, but I tried calling one of my old roommate, and he told me that he has a friend that needed someone to work for the office. Little did I know, I was only inviting him for my birthday. Now God opened a big door for me. I work in a property management company now, and they are willing to sponsor my visa. That's such a blessing for me to see how if you really focus on God, if you put God first in your life, then God will show you everything that you needed. Even if other people would leave us, it's okay to stand in your faith. I've seen God's faithfulness moved in my life, how I don't know all the answers, but God did. God knows every single thing that needs to happen in my life. I will still continue to become closer to God because having that relationship with God is so much loving and what I always wanted for my life. My name is Ruthie Montesines, and this is my testimony on how God opened doors for me when it seems impossible.